Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the show. So today I'm joined by the one and only Tatsu, who has not only been a mainstay in the Supreme Commander community, but is also working on a spiritual successor to Supreme Commander, and that is Sanctuary Shattered Sun. And I, for one, am super excited. And for those of you guys who have never seen my face, hello, I've actually got a webcam now. I'll start incorporating that. But to kind of get us started, Tatsu, I've got a lot of questions on Sanctuary Shattered Sun, kind of the business overall, as well as some technology questions. But before we get into all of that, for anybody who might not have heard of Sanctuary, could you give us like a paragraph summary of what Sanctuary Shattered Sun is?
Yeah. So Sanctuary Shattered Sun is a traditional real-time strategy game. Those are, few and far between these days, but yeah, we're going for that more traditional routes. It features staples of what we like to call Chris Taylor inspired games. And, the not only Chris Taylor was involved with games of that family, but such staples as simulated projectiles or simulated ballistics, depending on how people call it, streaming or flowing economy, again, depending on how people call it, strategic zoom, and the fact of having a king piece, so a unique unit in the game that if you lose the game. And I would say like those four big components combined with the idea of focusing more on macro, more on a large scale rather than a small micro scale where you're controlling very few units but controlling them very quickly, reacting very fast, and inputting a lot of actions per minute. Yeah, the those 4 points combined with a macro scale is kind of like the flavor of game that we're going for, the flavor of RTS that we're going for. I like to call those the Sim Pro RTS. There's a few in that family, most notably Total Annihilation. There's Homeworld One. Also, people tend to forget, but the first one had simulated projectiles, as well as all the other staples, and Supreme Commander, of course. And so, what a Sanctuary Shattered Sun is you could say a game that's hoping to be a spiritual successor to games like these. Um, and yeah, I guess that wasn't that much in a nutshell. I tried to keep it short, but yeah,
Hey,
that's
it's a
the
big
idea.
game, big project that y'all are undertaking here. So totally understand. Um, a mainstay of real-time strategy games are various factions or civilizations, and games go in a couple of different directions there, with some being very distinct, and other games take it more in a direction of all the factions being very, very similar. So one of the things that I'm curious about is how varied I believe it's the EDA, the Chosen, and the Guard. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
Um,
three factions.
Nice. I got it. How varied those factions are. Which kind of direction are y'all taking it in from a faction perspective, as far as
Well,
gameplay and mechanics?
yeah. So, we've already mentioned other games to use as a comparison point, and I'm going to introduce one more here. I'm going to introduce StarCraft's. I'm confident that viewers have heard of that game. So, in StarCraft, be it the original or StarCraft Two, you have a quite strong diversity between the different factions or races that you play. And in a game like Supreme Commander, you could say they're quite similar, right? And in games of the Simpro family, generally they're more similar. In fact, Planetary Annihilation, which is a game from that family, went so far in that direction that they only had one faction, so the maximum similarity.
Right.
But yeah, so we're kind of in between that, Simpro Macro RTS diversity level and the diversity level of something like StarCraft. We're keeping the number of factions down to three, which allows us to increase the level of differences. But the point isn't that you need to relearn the whole game when you change to another faction, right? That's not what we want to go for. So while keeping it something that you'd be comfortable switching between factions, relatively comfortable, we want it to be something where there's noticeable gameplay differences between the factions.
Okay, I love that.
Uh,
That's one of my favorite things about real time strategy games is getting to pick a faction that plays to your particular play style and uh, because I like to be really, really aggressive at like Tech One
mm.
and stuff like that. So I love that. I'm very excited about that. Um, as far as like kind of the vision for the three factions, and I know that this kind of goes a little bit into the lore as well, but could you kind of give us a quick summary of the three factions and maybe a little background on the lore of Sanctuary?
Well, first of all, to bounce off what you just said, I think that the guard might be the faction for you because they're the more swarmy of the three factions. They're more gonna be involved with lots of small, low cost units that you can overwhelm your enemy with. So I don't know if that's necessarily an early game thing. But anyways, that kind of answers the that first distinction for what the guard is to play like is like to play. And for the chosen, they're more of a specialist type faction where they don't have as many. I mean, they do still have like in the end, we have a planned roster of like 104 units, including buildings, for the chosen stuff. So, but they're gonna have units that are quite specialized that are going to do something and do that thing very very well. Um, so I don't know. It's a style of play that I don't know what would be the right word to characterize it. Definitely not rushy. It's going to be there's something where you probably do have to input a little bit more micro to get the best bang out of your buck. And then the EDA is going to be a faction that focuses on glass cannons, uh, units that are hard hitting, not necessarily tons of HP. That are uh, they're going to have lots of guerrilla style warfare. No turning tail and running, right? Just facing things head on, and you if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So yeah, they're going to have like I think quite a different play style. It's still a lot of that is still very much up in the air because we haven't gotten to that stage of the game where we can play test these actual ideas that we have on the faction, not in a substantive way where we get really good information out of what we're doing and we can be like, okay, let's change it up, right? Because X or Y is not working or it's completely imbalanced or something. So yeah, since we don't have like those things set in stones. I don't want to give like a definitive answer on that here now, but that at least that's the idea that we've made for ourselves for these three factions, and that's what we want to work towards. Um, and as for the lore, quick recap: the EDA or Earth Defense Alliance is the alliance of all of the humans in this distant future. By the way, this is a lore that occurs in this universe, in this Earth, in this solar system, just far into the future. But yeah, we're not introducing anything like there's not any magic, there's not any demons. There's nothing different from the universe you and I live in. It's just into the future, and we're going to try to make it a future that's as realistic as possible. Within certain rule of cool constraints, right? We do want them to be on a Dyson sphere. So yeah, in this far future, humanity ran out of space, wanted to have quasi infinite space to live on, and so they harvested all of the resources of the solar system. The basically the humans have taken all of the resources of the solar system, and except for Earth, and they've constructed a Dyson sphere around the sun. Uh, they've constructed it at 0.23 AU, which is the correct radius, the correct orbit radius to have 1 g of gravity from the sun pulling you down. So it's a comfortable 1 g, just like it is on Earth. However, it's very close to the sun. It's like within the corona and everything. It's very, very hot. So the surface of the Dyson sphere is constantly protecting the people that live on the outside from the heat. And you've got hubs all over, little portholes that let light through. That light shoots up into the sky, and geosynchronous orbiting mirrors reflect that light back down. And so you've got artificial suns all around in the tens of thousands,
Wow.
allowing for your day and night cycle by a pattern of oscillating mirrors. Um, and so yeah, that's Sanctuary. That's actually where the name of the game comes from. It's for this supposed paradise built for humanity to survive forever and ever. Um, Over the course of that time, because it was a long, very lengthy build construction process, there was a new faction that came into being, which is the Chosen. They're ascended humans. They're humans that are digitally uploaded into, your equivalent of the Matrix, and they still interact with the outside world and everything, but at a very improved rate. They're much more intelligent since they have much more computing horsepower at their disposal. And these two factions grow apart, right? They at the beginning, it's a good setup where they're able to have new leaders that are very, very smart and very, very capable and competent. But after a while, it becomes a strained relationship where there seems to be no real way to settle the growing conflicts, right? And uh, one thing leads to another. A terrorist attack on Sanctuary in the form of the moon from Earth crashing into Sanctuary triggers suspicion from both sides on the other. Who has done it? Well, they're convinced that it's the other necessarily, and a war breaks out, right? And that's when a third faction wakes up. It's the Guard, the robots that were tasked with constructing the Dyson Sphere have been released, and they've been released from the AI that was controlling it, and they've banded together and formed their own faction, and now have their own agency, right? And they don't operate with any laws of robotics or anything anymore, and their intent is to protect Sanctuary, as it for them is the hope for life in general, and this war threatens to wipe out all life. And so there's a three-way war now. There's a three-way war between the EDA, which is basically humans fighting for their survival, for their right to be human. The Chosen, who are these ascended humans who um, maybe are convinced they've got it figured out, and they know for the way forward for humanity, and biological humans just need to follow them, and the Guard, who want to put out both both rebellions, both people, and calm things down, and especially protect Sanctuary from the war. Um, Once again, I've tried to keep it short, but failed spectacularly.
Hey, big. I mean, it's a complicated environment. I'm very blown away, I guess would be the best way to put it, by how much thought y'all put into the actual construction of the Dyson sphere, and like what that would look like from a, from a gravity perspective, how close that would have to be to the sun. That's a level of thought that I don't think you
Yeah.
see in a lot of games, which I'm really impressed with.
Well, we had help. Like we had we've got like writers who came onto our Discord, and then we had a guy who's both mathematician and scientist, and he ran all the math, and he gave us the actual values for what you would get out of the mass of all of the current orbital bodies in the solar system, plus all the asteroid rings and stuff like that, and how much solar lifting you'd have to do to from there to get a complete, Dyson sphere minus the mass of the Earth and Moon. Plus, what the radius would be, the all those values, right? And the writers that are helping us out, they're coming up with a more in depth version of all this. With it's going to have it's going to have characters that you can get really attached to, that are going to have really nice story arcs and stuff like that. So yeah, this is stuff like that. I personally didn't think that I would have to care about originally when I set out with this project. But everybody I talk to says I care a lot about what the lore of the game is, and so yeah, we knocked our heads together in the Sanctuary team, and came up with this spark of an idea, which the Dyson Sphere part originally came from Avitus on the team. He's the one who was modeling the whole Chosen faction, and Special Bread, who's ex Exotic Retard. Probably know him from FAF.
Hmm.
Took it and improved it, and then all of us on the team started adding the puzzle pieces. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, you hinted a little bit at a storyline campaign. So I'm
Mm.
assuming that the game is going to have, a fleshed out campaign.
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
So what we're doing here is being a little prepared, right? So the current you know runway, the the plan that we have for Sanctuary is we've got funds and everything to develop a game that's just strictly multiplayer. You set yourself up, you host a game, and you join a game, and that's it, right? That's really honestly what we have the funds to put together. And that includes a lot of things, right? That includes a full modding suite, that includes a mapping tool, that includes a whole bunch of features that we're probably going to get into when we get into the technical side of things. But it does not include AI, does not include campaign, does not necessarily include Navy, a lot of things that you would, typically expect from a full package RTS game, right? Because we simply don't have the money to do that. But what we're doing is that we're preparing for a Kickstarter campaign. The date isn't set in stone, but it should be March of 2023. And when we run that campaign, we'll be basically campaigning for a campaign in our RTS. So yeah, that'll be the basic thing that we want to get funding for, and it'll all depend on how much we raise. We have like a whole bunch of stretch goals and everything in mind, and we'll publish the stretch goals. I think that like the campaign will be one of the stretch goals, because we can't have it be like the base goal. We want the base goal to be quite low so that we are assured success. But yeah, the idea is that the people will help us fund the campaign, um, and with that all going to plan, then yeah, we should be able to deliver a full package RTS with all the bells and whistles that people expect. But for now, I cannot say that that is currently the plan. Uh, In all honestly, that's I have to present things in a way where people don't get false hopes, right?
And I first off, I admire that because in our era of gaming, there's a lot of promises that get thrown out, and even from AAA studios with hundreds of people that are available to them, and it ends up being frustrating for people. So, thank you
Yeah.
very much for being transparent on where we can set our expectations on that side. And I don't
Yeah.
want this to come across at all like I'm disappointed or anything like that. I'm still supremely excited, if you'll pardon the pun, supremely excited for Sanctuary, but I appreciate you being transparent there.
Mm.
Going back to some of the game mechanics, I've watched, I believe, every single interview that you've done in the past, and it's been fun to watch the game kind of take shape over the last year and a half or so that I've been following it and joined y'all's Discord. Two of the things that I know were talked about or kicked around. The first one being second wind on a commander. So
Mm.
is that still on the cards? And if it is, could you give a quick summary of kind of what that is?
Yeah. First off, this has been relegated to Kickstarter. There's a couple of things that are like we were like, okay, we really need to keep it to the let's keep the focus on the multiplayer and all those extra things we want to do. We'll do it maybe if we have the time and funds to do it, right? But that being said, right, the idea we're still pretty happy with it. The thing is, like, we understand that people don't want to, be forced into a type of gameplay that they don't necessarily like, and we want players when they get their hands on Sanctuary to have a lot of options in the hosting panel, and one of those being the ability to turn off second wind, because we fully anticipate that a lot of people won't be down with that. But yeah, we do want to see. We want to give that mechanic wings. We want to see if it can fly, right? Um, w- yeah, it's a question of like this thing deserves trying, but it's not core to our identity. If you feel what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And second wind, just so that I'm making sure that I understand it appropriately, it's the ability for a commander, if they deplete their health bar, they become invulnerable for a short amount of time so that they can kind of reposition, and then that's and then they can heal back up, and then that's kind of their last life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you'd be mobile while you're in the timeouts.
Okay.
And also it's like yeah, you basically just get a brand new health bar, kind of like those bosses in Souls games or stuff like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, the idea being that the chess piece, the king piece mechanic is great, but a little bit, a little bit surprising, right? For especially for people coming into the genre, and yeah, you want to get people more time to enjoy the whole experience before being frustrated with it,
Hmm.
right? And I think that'll really help with that because there's more of an opportunity for you to learn your lesson if you're like, oh yeah, duh, I did this thing and yeah, I got caught out, and okay, but this is my second chance, but my last, right? So now I'm gonna be careful with that. And then you die to something else, and that's all. That's another lesson on top of it. But yeah, the idea being that you feel like you got more out of that one match than just those short 15 minutes, right? um so um so yeah, that is indeed the general idea. And again, given that we haven't been able to really play test, all of this is still up in the air. Uh, but yeah, it is something that we do definitely want to give a shot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely I'm happy that it's able to be enabled or disabled
Hmm.
for people that might be comfortable with the genre or might not like that particular aspect. Very similar to how no share and full share games can be hosted within Fortune Alliance forever. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that it's going to be pretty highly configurable. Another mechanic that was discussed extensively, I believe, in the Guile interview was the ability to reshape the map, either through, I think it was buildable and destroyable bridges or passes, as well as actually destroying portions of the Dyson sphere, which
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
intriguing. Where does that kind of sit?
So that also sits in the stretch goals on Kickstarter and everything. But again, this is something that like at least the bridges and skyscrapers. It's if we do have the time and budget left over, probably something that we can fit in ourselves without the aid of crowdfunding. But yeah, you'll notice that it's very you could say scripted types of changes to the map. It's not something that's really free form like the kind of map changes that you can have in games like Zero K and Bar, where you can where actually the lowering and raising and lowering the terrain is actually one of your gameplay tools that you got to use over the course of the game to get an edge over your opponent. Right? You're supposed to uh, put important structures deep down into wells and put artillery pieces and point defenses up tall on large hills. This way, they get more range. Um, and yeah, so that's not at all the what we want to have at Sanctuary, right? We just think that kind of this is what is generally referred to as terrain deformation, and terrain deformation is a gameplay mechanic that we feel just doesn't meld well with the type of gameplay that we're trying to create. However, having active changes to the map and to like what you where the units can go and stuff like that. That's interesting, and within a controlled environment, so to speak, that can definitely be fun, right? And so that's what we're trying to create and add to Sanctuary. And yeah, the idea is that like the Dyson sphere that you're on, of course it's a lot of metal and stuff, and then you got your rock and dirt, but it's only so much, right? There's
Hmm.
only so much it can take, and at a certain amounts of firepower and destruction, you can actually blow through that, and then create these big holes in the map, right? And so, how would that function? Well, first of all, it would be very, very late game tools that would allow you to do that. Potentially the nuke. We don't know if the nuke necessarily creates a hole, or maybe it's a special type of really much bigger nuke. Maybe it's a special type of experimental unit or something like that. It's still being debated. But how would it work? Well, you'd probably have a set kind of area that you can choose, and it's like basically, are you attacking like this quadrant or this quadrant of the map, and then there's going to be kind of an elements of randomness to it, but it's going to create holes and cracks around that area that you selected, right? um, and yeah, it's going to be area that's no longer pathable, potentially no longer traversable by air, because then you got huge gusts of solar wind coming out.
Hmm.
All the units that were on hopefully would be falling into the hole and then therefore dead. So yeah, and things like bridges. Well, that's another thing. Like if you can destroy a bridge, you know, you had a path that you could, you know, take to get to another place. Now you have to take the long way round, or maybe there's no land solution to get there. Now the bridge is destroyed. Um, Likewise, if units are on the bridge while the bridge is destroyed, they would die. And the idea with skyscrapers is that it's another map tool that you can use potentially to swing the tides of battle in your favor, right? Just like, you know, the holes in the Dyson sphere or the destruction of the bridge. If the building that you knock over catches out a bunch of units that happen to be passing through, then you got yourself a pretty good battle on your hands. So yeah, that's the idea with those. And in terms of like implementing them, the skyscraper is one, probably the easiest one. The bridge is a bit harder, and the Dyson sphere holes are the hardest. But you know, probably be seeing screenshots and stuff. We've already made quite a lot of headway with those.
That's a good shout out if anybody watching this has not checked out Sanctuary Shattered Sun .com. There's a lot of good stuff on the website as far as screenshots, videos, as well as even some of the music that y'all are going to be implementing into the game. So if you're curious, some of the stuff that we're referring to here will be flashing up on the screen, but that's another good place to go and check out some of the content that has already been created throughout the development cycle. And I'll link that down in the description.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to some of the more technical stuff. First thing I want to talk about is modding. So, what kind of flexibility around modding will there be? Like, you know, the ability to create a survival mode, or the ability to reskin units, introduce new units through mods, have UI mods, things like that.
Yeah. So everything you've listed sounds absolutely possible. I think, as a matter of fact, I don't really see anything stopping you from modding that into the current Sanctuary engine as it stands. Pardon. So yeah, we've expended quite a lot of effort into the modding suite, and the reason why I say that is that so we're building our game in Unity, right? And Unity is its own thing. It compiles a binary. Modding a Unity game that's just been made like that is generally quite difficult. It's annoying to do. You have to download the game, decompile it using the Unity editor. The result that you may get from the decompilation may not be exactly perfect, and then you have to manually modify things in there, recompile, and then that's your mod. Or you can do things that kind of plug in, but you kind of have to do a lot of reverse engineering to get that happening, right? When that's what you're doing, modding a Unity game. And we wanted to have Sanctuary be made in Unity, and we wanted it to be easily moddable. And on the face of it, that those were two conflicting things. But so what we did is we created a pass-through layer for the C sharp to talk to a Luajit engine. We have a C++ pass-through layer, which allows the two to communicate. And we have now a scripting folder called Lua, in which you have all of the methods, all of the stats, the values for the units, the textures, everything. As much as possible is offloaded into that, right? Um, and as a result of like adopting this policy of expose everything, we've got a really really highly moddable game, right? I would say it's more moddable than Supreme Commander is. and there's still some ways further that we can push it. Um, I can think of like some examples of things that aren't moddable in other games that are moddable in ours. Things like, oh, you've got this unit that can't move and shoot at the same time, and we'd love to add that in as a Lua mod, but can't because that specific thing is specified in the core of the engine in the compiled part. So it's something that you can't touch, right? And things like that definitely will be exposed in Sanctuary. And obviously, like the whole factions and everything, they're all in the Lua site. So adding a new faction that's completely on the cards. The AI will be written in all in Lua, so adding a new AI also completely on the cards. Um, well, you get the idea, right? It's
Mhm.
very highly moddable, and we expended a lot of effort to make that better than in previous games and make that perform faster than in previous games. Because Lua people is are very like modders are very familiar with that language, and they're very used to using it. We wanted to stick to that. This way, they would be in the same environments. But we put it in Lua JIT. So from the Lua programmer, there's no difference. It's still Lua. It's just being executed a hell of a lot faster.
Gotcha. That's really great to hear. I know a lot of the modders out there are salivating right now, waiting for the stuff that they can create with it. So one thing that you did mention is that Unity and modding kind of being at odds. And I did want to ask what made you guys want to go with Unity, because it seems like a lot of like 0K and bar are built on Spring. And then there are
Yeah,
other engines out there that you guys could have gone with or build your own. So why'd you choose Unity?
yeah. I mean, like engines like Spring are, and by the way, Spring is the engine. Bar is one of the game that's built on top of the engine.
Correct. Thank you
Yeah,
for making that distinction.
Spring came out 1 month before Supreme Commander. Uh, I don't know if you knew this. It's an
I
engine
did
that's
not.
been around for a long while, right? So what happened is like Total Annihilation came out and it was a huge hit, much bigger hit than Supreme Commander, relatively speaking. For the time, it was enormous. It had critical acclaim and everything, and modders were all over it, and people were like, oh, the community wanted to really do something, and they really pulled together, right? That community really pulled together, and what they did was they created Spring, which was kind of a real marvel of the open source world for its time. Um, and yeah, it's I think the fact that games are being made in it today actively stands as a testament to what was really created back then. And obviously, it being open source, it's something that's constantly improving, right? But there are some core limits that can't really be overcome. One is the fact that the graphics API that it uses is OpenGL, not anything more quote unquote modern
Hmm.
like DirectX 11, 12, or Vulkan. Um, Unity, of course, uses DirectX 11, 12, Vulkan, whatever you want, even OpenGL if you want. You don't really have a hard time choosing. Its graphics pipeline is kind of the big selling point of Unity, like one of the major things. Uh, Obviously, for those big AAA engine, Unreal Unity, that's like the big thing, right? Everything from lighting to shadows and everything is going to be miles away of what you could get yourself, especially if you've got a timeline of like 5 to 6 years, right? If you spent maybe 10 to 6 years in your own engine, then maybe, but you really have to know what you're doing. So yeah, taking that extra dev time out, and especially at expertise, right, that we don't necessarily have, is good. The fact that the Spring Engine was 32 bits, was single threaded, a lot of stuff. Um, And again, like it being open source, you can see the power of that because the bar devs took the Spring Engine from 32-bit to 64 bits,
Hmm.
and they also multi-threaded certain parts. Now they can't multi-thread the entire thing, but they did multi-thread certain things. Like I believe they multi-threaded the pathfinding, which is a hell of an achievement, right? And yeah, so they can have certain like little black boxes within their stack of what they're building. That's a bit more. But yeah, all of that was kind of short of what I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to have a game that was more a spiritual successor to Supreme Commander than it is to Total Annihilation.
Mm.
The Spring Engine games typically have that TA flavor, and for good cause. You know, it's not only the history of it, but the community that's around it and that's helping around it is generally more attuned to that kind of taste. Um, so all these factors, plus the fact that when I first set out to create my own RTS, I was very open to the idea of open source and even Spring, and even Bar. But then what I had in mind were, I guess, bigger ambitions than probably I should have been having. But I was like, this is open source isn't moving fast enough for me, right? And so I completely, scrapped the project and rebooted the project as a closed source one, and suddenly things were moving along, right? So when there is money in the equation, you do have a better chance for things to progress more speedily along, get um, yeah, get better skill on board, and things like that, right? And yeah, the whole uh, the whole appeal of Unity, I think for me became the fact that it features the dot stack, which is a feature set that allows you. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but to multi-thread code, right? And I was like, well, if you want to have tens of thousands of units that are running simultaneously, simulating their ballistics all at the same time, all in real time, um, that you're definitely going to want multi-threading and having tools that facilitate that and that kind of do it for you. Um, Again, I'm really paraphrasing here because like it does involve a lot of work,
Hmm.
but that really do facilitate it. That's definitely a big plus, right? Yeah, the skill pool of the people that I could find that I had around me, that were all using Unity, the graphics pipeline that is really really good, and the fact that you can multi-thread, relatively speaking, easily on Unity, all made it a really good choice.
Gotcha. Excellent. So as far as you talked a lot about some of the aspects that drew you to Unity, like multi-threading. I'm really excited to hear that because that's one of the big gripes with Forge Alliance Forever is that Supreme Commander largely runs on a single thread. And yeah, whenever I was building a computer about a year ago, I actually went with Intel purely because of clock speed and instructions per clock. And I knew that it would run Supreme Commander a little bit better. So really happy to see that multi-threading is a priority there. Um, Another pain point around Fortune Alliance Forever that I'm curious how y'all are going to approach to solve this in Sanctuary, the spiritual successor here to Supreme Commander, is the network issues that are inherent in kind of the peer-to-peer connection handling that Fortune Alliance Forever has.
Yeah. Well, that's an incredible question for me because, yeah, I get to to kind of give a good answer for at least where Sanctuary is concerned. Yeah, we're dropping peer to peer as a solution. I mean, dropping. We never, we never had it. But like what we're gonna do for our network code is to have a client server model, and that sounds scary at first. Like when you think about that, you immediately think about, well, you have now you have servers from the company, right? And then you're dependent on that company. If the company goes down, the game goes down. The twist that we're adding to that is that one of the players that's in the match, that's playing a match, is the one who is the server, right? Not us. So what that means is that you gain the same longevity of the game as you have with solutions that use peer-to-peer networking, where they don't require anybody, they don't require any company or anybody to be actively keeping the game alive with money. Um, but you don't have all the issues that come with having to lockstep the simulation and being like, okay, is everybody exactly on
Right.
the same has everybody simulated the exact same results? Can we continue to the next tick? And yeah, and that being a problem that doesn't scale well. So, like one of the things that just so happens that the flavor of gameplay of uh, big macro simpro RTSs generates is a gameplay where it's fun to play with multiple people at once, as um, as compared to big RTS like StarCraft or even all the CNC games, right? Generally, those where whenever you go into the competitive space, it's 1v1 only, and everything else just breaks apart on a balance level, on just all kinds of level. But not Supreme Commander. It's a game that is still balanced and fun in those types of setups, and
Hmm.
the more players, the merrier, right? Same kind of thing that we want to pursue for Sanctuary Shattered Sun. We want it to be just as fun to play in 1 versus 1 as it is in 2 versus 2, or 4 versus 4, or 8 versus 8. And yeah, in an engine where you're doing a lockstep deterministic and peer-to-peer networking, you're not going to be able to scale that up to like 16 by 16 versus 16, or 32 by 32 very well, right? Because you need to have all of that bandwidth going out for all of the players all at the same time, and that just doesn't scale at all.
Hmm.
Like it's a problem it goes exponential, and you want something that's linear in terms of the bandwidth that you're using per player. And when you have a setup with server clients, well, then that problem goes out the window, right? You could even have hubs, right? Somebody who's also running another server, or not even a server, but like receiving the data from the main server and distributing it to a group of other players that are nearby, uh, 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 in terms of geographically speaking. He has these players in a relatively close radius, right? And as a result, the amount of bandwidth that you need per player is not at all gonna completely explode as you increase the number of players. For now, we're promising, eight-player games. Um, and we're gonna see about more later on, right? We don't want to promise more that we are sure we can do, like until we've been able to test those bigger things. Um, you know, uh, we'll see. But again, probably we can just leave this up to the modders. This will be stuff that will probably be exposed in the Lua, and therefore pretty easy to fiddle with. Um, so yeah, that's one of the benefits that you get with this model. The other one is that since we're not in lockstep, we don't care about like what's the state of your sim or whatever. You can receive that anew from the server if requested, right? Yeah, hey, I need to resync. Give me the state of the game, right? Well, in that case, you could, completely disconnect, start up with an even different computer or something else and reconnect to the same game. Um, you could, there's an infinite number of possibilities that are unlocked by this setup, right? So yeah, that's I feel that's like a really big step up in terms of what Sanctuary Shattered Sun is proposing. Um, there's a lot that we can do there. So yeah, I feel like this other issue that you mentioned in Supreme Commander sim lag, sorry, network lag, um, will be something that people won't run into with Sanctuary, at least not to the same degree.
Okay. So in a game, you have the client server model set up, and one of the players that is in the game is the actual server. Let's say that game decides that player three is ideal server, and player three,
Hmm.
we have second wind disabled, and player three walks forward, puts himself in a rough position, and gets eliminated. How does the game
Yeah.
handle that migration?
Yeah, so what you do then is you transfer the state over, the full states, to the next best candidate for being server. And by the way, I doubt that this will be mostly informed by the performance of that person's computer, but more so by his upload speed,
Okay.
because really that's the biggest bottleneck these days, right? Like we really like in terms of GPU, we use quite a lot of GPU. Our minimum spec there is a 1050 Ti, right? We did want to have gorgeous graphics, but in terms of CPU, with the multi-threading, our CPUs are like when we're running Sanctuary, they don't struggle at all. So that's not at all the bottleneck. The bottleneck is upload bandwidth, and since we're not, lockstep deterministic, where we're punished by that is that we do have to upload a lot of data each sim tick to synchronize the state, and to inform all the players of what's going on, right? So yeah, probably whichever player is the next best upload speed then becomes the server. His on his side, the server part of the game gets spun up, receives the full state of the game, and starts distributing it to the rest of the players. He's now the new server, right? And
Okay.
you do that until the last player is left.
So on that, and if you don't have a number yet, that's fine. But I'm curious: are we talking kilobits, megabits? Like, where are we on that upload speed requirement there?
Well, our target is 8 megabits. We want to fit under that, and I know that might sound relatively low and everything, but we want to keep in mind people that are in Africa, people that are in Australia and everything. We want something that's accessible to people all around the world, and for people all around the world to be able to play with each other, which is not something that bigger studios generally have to tackle, right? Generally, what they'll do is they'll have a big server in America, in Europe, in stuff like that, and only those people will be able to play together, right? That's what StarCraft, as an example, does. But yeah, here we want anybody to be able to connect with anybody else in the world, theoretically.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah. We've
So
been we've been since nine is Australian and I'm French. When we do play tests where we connect to one another, we are in effect giving it a pretty good stress test.
I was playing with one of my Australian friends last night, and it seems like he always has a connection issue to somebody, even though he has good internet. Just for whatever reason, Australia is a rough portion as far as connecting to some other areas of the world.
No, I mean, Australians amongst themselves, yeah, sure, they have good connection, but Australia to the rest of the world, it's like they're not even, they're in the Stone Age. They have they're using the pipeline that comes from Europe going through China, to be connected to the rest of the world. It's
Hmm.
another catastrophe. It's been the subject of a lot of political debate over the years, and nothing has been done.
Well, what can we do except try and work within the bounds of what is already there?
Exactly.
Um, so as far as a minimum and recommended system requirements, 1050 Ti, what would be the minimum and recommended on CPU side, RAM side, and then how big is the game going to be? If you could ballpark it.
Oh, in terms of like gigabytes,
Yeah.
uh, ballpark 20 gigabytes, probably more.
Okay.
Um, and in terms of specs, so let me just read it directly. Yeah, so any four-core CPU that's three gigahertz or above,
Okay.
16 gigabits of RAM. I know that one's a bit spicy. That's a bit much, but yeah, we've witnessed Unity using 9 to 10 gigabytes of RAM on a typical scenario. So all those setups that use 8 gigabytes of RAM, those aren't going to cut it, I think. So just to be on the safe side, yeah. But yeah, basically, I think that that the thing is, like, 12 is an atypical number, right? There's
Hmm.
rarely people who have those weird uh numbers of amounts of RAM. So
Yep.
yeah, I just put it at 16.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The so some of the last technical questions here, but you kind of spearheaded a lot of the Forge Alliance Forever for Linux efforts as far as getting that running through Proton and putting together guides and things like that. What is Sanctuary for Linux planned, or is that going to be run through an emulation layer? What are the plans there?
Um, Yeah, I can't make any promises there, and I know that sounds weird as somebody who's like very personally motivated by Linux. Like, I'm being a realist here. Everybody on the team has to make sacrifices in their own department to make Sanctuary happen, and I'm no exception, right? I have to put my personal motivations to the side in terms of Linux to make that happen. What I can say is that since we're building it on Unity, there's not really that much of a barrier to it happening. I think the testament to that is the fact that the Sanctuary map editor, which is basically just a fork of Sanctuary, actually right now has a Linux native build that everybody can try out. It's like one of the main reasons we recommend people join our Discord is that on our Discord you can download and try the Sanctuary map editor, and you can start making maps. And actually, people have already been making beautiful maps with it. Got one just recently, which I was pretty blown away by. And yeah, so I think that that already shows that we're on a good path for that. But again, in the spirit of honesty, I won't make an explicit promise on that topic,
Hmm.
right? But I think that what we'll do is we'll make it a Kickstarter stretch goal. This way, then it becomes an explicit promise, and then we know that we have everything. Like, we have that safety net. We're sure we can deliver it. So that's how that'll play out.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to shift here to a little bit more about the business because I'm a business major from college and then work for a software company. So curious about a lot of business aspects. As far as timeline, funding, where do y'all sit on? I think you said that multiplayer is going to be kind of the first initial release with additional things being stretch goals after that. So first, I guess question is something like the campaign. Is that going to be a monetized DLC? Is that going to be something that is just added into the game from existing funding from the
No,
Kickstarter?
I think like I mean like I hope I'm not speaking out of line in terms of how Nine sees it, but like we talked a lot at length about this, and I think that the consensus is that we are promising it as a Kickstarter thing. Like if that Kickstarter stretch goal is reached, then that's it's part of the base game that you buy on Steam. And if you've reached a tier that's having the game on Kickstarter, you have it from you'll have your Steam key from Kickstarter, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess the simple answer there is no. It'll be part of the whole game. However, additional campaign as a DLC, that's something that we do want to do because what we're trying to do is as much as we can create one of those really long lasting games, like games with really long legs, right? And that's kind of a first of all, like we're completely you could say out of our league in general in terms of like how we want to make a full on big RTS, and RTS is a challenging type of game to make as our first game as this team, right? But on top of that, we wanted to be a success within this community, which is another tall order. And the tallest order of all is that we want to make a game that has a long lifetime or an infinite lifetime, right? One of those games that has seasons, that has continuous new content being poured into it, and that's as lucrative as it is spending money, right? So yeah, and to that end, things like having a new campaign that you can purchase on top of that, that would really go a long ways to making that kind of thing possible, right? We want to be able to host large scale tourneys. We want this game to develop an esports scene if we can. So all those things will require a lot of money to make happen, and yeah, we're not being completely close minded about the different ways that we can make that happen. Right? Of course, we're from this gamer sphere, which is very uh, um, closed out about everything microtransactions and loot boxes and stuff like that. We're of that family of gamers, and that first and foremost before being game developers. But on the other side, it's not like there's not things that are acceptable on both ends of the field, right? So the aforementioned example of the the DLC campaign, an extension with new units, with a new faction, new co-op challenges that you can play with your friends. I think like to use StarCraft as another example here, I think StarCraft really had a good idea of how to keep continuous content that keeps people coming back in the form of those challenge modes that they put out seasonally. That's a good idea, and that could definitely be paywalled, and then you got a steady flow of income. We could have skins for the units. StarCraft did that to great success. We could have the ability, for you to create your own skin for your own unit. You purchase that ability, and then you skin your units. But then it's not just a sim mod. Sorry, a UI mod. It's a sim mod, and everybody automatically gets it downloaded and sees it, and that's your little perk. I don't know. There's tons of ideas on the table, and honestly, this is one of the things that we have our Discord for, right? We want people to come in and be like, you know what, this is the kind of compromise that would work for me, and so we're listening out for ideas. So if people want to come to our Discord and give us a suggestion, that's what it's there for.
Awesome. It sounds it sounds a little bit more like if you the old RTS model before the internet was largely distributing games, where you'd buy a base game and then you buy an expansion pack later and another expansion pack. So it seems like that's a little bit more what y'all are shooting for, and then having cosmetics as far as a
Yeah,
paid as a paid solution. So
yeah. I mean, we definitely live in a world nowadays of free to play games, right? And everybody does that. And in my mind, there's no possibility for free to play and not pay to win to coexist.
mhm,
I just find that mathematically impossible. And people are looking the other way generally when they believe that that it is something that can coexist. Um, and uh, and it also comes with a lot of predatory practices where they teach the user to always whip out their wallets. Even in the case of cosmetics, they get people kind of addicted to that, and I don't like that kind of thing, right? So, and plus, it's a financial model that functions when you've got an investment of millions and millions to put down at the start, which I don't have.
mhm,
So I'm opposed to it uh, on a belief level, and I'm opposed to it also because I don't have the financials to make that kind of model work.
mhm.
So yeah,
Well, that's great. I would much rather pay like 70, $80 or something like that for a game, and then have the option to purchase challenges or skins
yeah,
or something like that, but have like a full game instead of getting a game for free and then realizing that I'm just going to get absolutely shreked anytime I turn around unless I put down $10 for a particular game or upgrade or something like that. So,
yeah. Yeah, and my belief is that business wise, we're making the right choice here. Not because the numbers look better on this side, but because like people who are generally thinking of it strictly in terms of numbers aren't really taking into consideration like the specific audience. They're looking at it in terms of audiences that are so huge that the specific audience doesn't matter anymore. Everybody's just melded together into this John Doe that it doesn't really matter, right? Whereas here, we know that we're targeting a relatively niche audience. Like we're talking about 2 million people, probably around that much, maybe a bit more, but not much more than that. We're not talking about billions of people, right? Just or 100 million people or anything like that, right? Just 2 million people or a million people or maybe a couple thousand because um, at the end of the day, right? If we sell, like even 20,000 copies, I'm blown away. This is my first game. This is right. This is nuts. This is like completely nuts. Um, but um, but yeah, the full audience for a game like Sanctuary Shattered Sun, I think, I mean, it could be, I could be wrong, right? But it's probably not going to be beyond 2 million people, and that does mean like a specific audience type with the people that have specific beliefs and like I think that within that specific audience type, I can make the generalization that most of them don't like microtransactions, and so that's why I'm saying I think I'm making the right business decision here.
I would agree, um, for what it's worth. As far as if you or Nine have looked into the future, have you all thought about what's next after Sanctuary, or are you
Yeah.
just head down for Sanctuary?
No, we have actually. I mean, like I'm personally the so this is interesting actually because this is where it becomes interesting to have two kind of leads of the company, right? Me and Nine, and there's two not necessarily opposing but differing mindsets here. And me, I'm like head first for Sanctuary. I just like I believe this thing can be huge. It can be a long-term moneymaker and a long-term critical success. And Nine is like, well, in Heart Media, the company as a whole can't rely on just that for its long-term success. And the company that we built in Heart Media is probably bigger in the whole than just Sanctuary, right? We are going to be probably putting out more titles. And first of all, once we have Sanctuary out, we'll have a pretty potent engine, right? In what we've built. From there, there's a lot of titles that you can make. You can adapt it to a lot of new scenarios, potentially new platforms, right? Parts of the engine can be reused in the mobile space, in the console space. It can be pretty readily made into a tower defense type game. It can be made into a SimCity type game. It could be made into a Factorio type game. It could be, there's a lot of different other RTS and 4X IPs that might be shopping around for a new engine in which they can have their new title in, and like we'll be the studio that will be able to offer that, right? But like what I want people to hear when I'm saying all that is that like I'm not going to be going away. Sanctuary is going to be my baby, I think, till the rest of my days, and I'm going to be continuing to pour over it and see how much better I can make it, and how much more invested and involved I can get the community. So yeah, I think like there will be those two kind of um, tactics that are in operation at the same time, right? In the future, if that makes sense.
No, it most certainly does. Um,
Mm.
as far as long-term goals for Enhearten Media Group as a company, um, and again, I might be asking a little bit much. I know that y'all are privately held, but long term, are you for the business? Would y'all be looking to get acquired by an Activision Blizzard? Would you want to keep it independent? What is the long term goal? I guess from a business perspective, there.
Uh, it's the kind of question where I'm like really tempted to just answer straight off the bat because I have my personal mindset and my idea on that, but it's 50-50 owned between me and Nine, so I have to consult him for a decision like that, and it's possible that Nine sees that differently than I do. But personally, right now, I'm pretty happy being independent and not being bought up. Um, I don't. I mean, like, if we're looking into concrete examples, and you listed Activision Blizzard, I don't see that they would be purchasing us to really push the project forward. I mean, I'm not sure that things like what I've said about uh, no microtransactions and stuff like that really lines up with the ideals of a company like that. They don't believe the same things that I do in that regard, and so since our visions don't necessarily align, we're not necessarily a good match for each other. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So, so I guess the short answer for now is no. But like since we've been talking to investors and VCs in order to get our funding, and successfully so, so far, and so far it's been just angel investors. It's not like we're completely sealed off either, right? We're perfectly happy to talk to anyone that comes to us, but um, at the end of the day, we have our ideal for Sanctuary, and we don't really want to see that tarnished. So that has to be kept in mind.
Excellent. That's yeah, and I know as far as publicity and everything like that, y'all have been starting to make waves. I don't know if you watch Linus Tech Tips, but y'all were featured on a WAN show at one point, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I was so happy.
the so I guess more personally for you, I'm a little curious. I'm curious what made you want to start this project, because this seems like a very monumental project. Like, what's motivating you and driving you here?
Yeah. So it's the like honestly like 4 years or 3 years ago, you'd have asked me, and I'd be like, what? I'm not gonna do that. I'd have said I'm not gonna undertake something like that. Like, there's gonna be somebody else, right, who will do it. And that was always the thing, right? It's like, I'm, I'm in this space of the Simpro RTS as a gamer, right? As somebody who's really enjoys that, and I'm constantly expecting, hoping, that something will happen, and you can see that in how I react to the release of, say, any new RTS that comes out. But yeah, to list particular examples, Planetary Annihilation and Ashes of Singularity. Every time these things are announced, I'm like on deck, right? I'm one of the first to join the forums and be interacting with that new community and be super hype about it, right? And then it's not like it doesn't shape out to be what I'd hoped it would be. And it's like, well, and it's not just me who feels that way, by the way. I feel like a larger portion of the macro RTS community feels the same way I do. That the space has been pretty much barren for now 15 years, and nobody was really coming along and being that savior that I wanted. And so I was like, at a certain point, you just gotta realize that nobody's coming to save you, and you just gotta pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do something about it yourself. And fundamentally, Sanctuary is the game that I most want to play. I want to make a game for myself. Hopefully, that's not a misguided motivation for making a game, especially a commercial one. But I feel that I'm not, really misguided, in that I'm not alone in this. There's a large community that's interested in the same thing I am. Um, it's heading in the right direction, and I'm not like completely losing sight of of the you know the fine focus, the funnel that you have to keep yourself within, to make an actual successful title. Like, what you want at its best form can conflict with that. You want to be mindful and find the just middle ground, between, well, between actually shipping and between your ideals of ideals, right? So yeah, and in that sense, I feel like I and the InHeart Media team have really carved a very good path so far, towards that goal, right? Um, yeah, it feels like uh, big publishers and studios have monopolized to the degree that they're always doing mergers and stuff like that, and it's become such a thing where feeding those beasts requires just gigantic sums of money. The projects have to be um, talking about billions of dollars earned, not millions, for it to be something worthwhile to, as an example, Activision Blizzard, or any one of those big publishers. Uh, and when that's the base condition, there's not going to be any one of those people who are going to step up in the case of one of those smaller markets, right? One of those markets where, well, there's maybe 100,000 or a million people at most in the market, right? It's not something that's worthwhile at all, and financially, you got to focus on the bigger fish. But I'm not interested in the bigger fish. I'm just interested in my the game that I want to play, and I think that for someone like me, that market is absolutely non-negligible. It's absolutely a very big market. It's absolutely something that is of consequence. So yeah, bit of a rant. Sorry.
You're good. Um, no, you're good. So question from me. Um, as a creator, will Sanctuary have a replay vault? I'm really hopeful for that.
Yeah, like it's honestly without the Kickstarter, it's not a feature that I can promise. Again, sorry to
Okay.
be giving this answer again and again and again. I'd rather be, I'd rather not make false hopes again. The simple answer is it'll be on the feature list of what the Kickstarter can offer. If whatever tier is in it reached, it'll be in there. Obviously, everybody on the Sanctuary team wants to have replays as a feature and replays vaults and replay vault to go with it. And it's not a question of is it super hard to make, or is it? It's a question of like we have everything timed out, set up on the schedule and everything, and it's not necessarily on the schedule right now because there's so many other things to do to
Oh
put
yeah.
together TS, right. But yeah, there's fundamentally nothing at odds with the current code base to implement that feature, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, good deal. Just let me know how much it'll be. I'll just cut y'all a check because I really want to cast Sanctuary games. I'm really excited for that.
Sounds good. That's good. Might
um,
be bigger than what you think.
yeah, it probably would be. Um, okay, so that was really about all the questions that I had. Just I wanted to thank you so much for taking like over almost an hour, over an hour and a half here to sit down with me. I've been following the project ever since I learned about it about a year and a half ago, where I think you popped up into all the FAF servers and we're like, hey, this is something that's happening. And everybody was like, oh my God, it's real. So I've been a Patreon supporter for y'all for the last year and a half, ever since I've learned about it. So thank you guys so
Thank you
much
so
for,
much.
well, thank you so much for what y'all are working on. I'm excited for the Kickstarter. And do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Well, yeah, actually. We're just about to publish our Steam page. So what does that mean? That means like a Steam page where you have like the wishlist button, and additionally, in our case, the cinematic trailer, which is a big thing that we've been teasing for a while now, and we've been saying that we were going to put it on the Kickstarter page. But now we're thinking that like we want to have a gameplay trailer on the Kickstarter page instead. So we're gonna start producing that when we get around to close to releasing the Kickstarter. But yeah, for now, the cinematic trailer will be available on our Steam page. And so tentatively, the publishing date for the Steam page should be the 21st. Perhaps by the time you're watching this video, it's already out. If so, there will be the description in the link for the Steam page in the description and in the comments. But yeah, I want what I want to say to everyone is please go on Steam and click on that wishlist button, because this informs the Steam algorithm that this is a game that a lot of people are interested in, and then it's gonna recommend it to a much larger audience. So yeah, that would help us very much.
All right, get to it, guys. Go add that to your wish list. Well, Tatsu, thank you so much for taking the time here with me this morning. We'll kind of wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and check out Sanctuary's website. They also have a YouTube page where they showcase a lot of the graphic stuff that they're working on. Consider supporting them on Patreon, and they also have a Discord. So I'll link everything down in the description below, but that's where you can best stay up to date on everything Sanctuary Shattered Sun. So with that, Tatsu, thank you so much, and we'll see y'all later.